Welcome everybody to tasting number 131 of the Saratoga Whiskey Club. We're in May of 2023, just a week before our big event, our big fundraiser for the year, which is Drams for Fams. I'm very happy that so many people could join us tonight. I wasn't sure when I announced this tasting how many people would sign up. It's not a distillery that most people know. Maybe they've had one expression from them, but not many have had a lot. So it's really great to see how many people signed up. This is really, I think, going to be a really fun single cask tasting tonight. Yeah, so next week's a big week for us, and thank you for all who are coming or have donated. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to talk just quickly about the distillery, and then I'm going to play a 3-minute video, which I did download. I'm going to turn the screen so the people here can see it. It's actually a really nice video. But let's talk a little bit about the distillery. It is one of the oldest in Scotland. It is also one of the most difficult to pronounce in Scotland. It gets butchered all the time. But it's pronounced Geary, G-E-E-R-Y, Glen Garioch. So when you see Garioch, which most people call it Glen Garioch, you're wrong. It's Glen Garioch, which is a Doric. It's in the Doric dialect of Aberdeen. So it's one of these distilleries in that northeastern part of Scotland. But it goes all the way back to 1797. It is it's located, the location was chosen by John and Alexander Manson. It's Old Meldrum is the location. It's a weird name, Old Meldrum, in the celebrated Valley of the Geary, which is basically the granary of Aberdeenshire. So lots of grain grown in this area that's famous for producing the finest barley in all of Scotland. So we'll find out if that's true tonight. But it was originally a brewery, a tannery, and it's pronounced Geary. It's 150 square miles. That's the fertile land that it's located. Or wait, hold on. The Geary is a tract of fertile land that's about 150 square miles. So quite a large area. That's called the Geary. Let's see here. So in 1968, they did suspend production because of water shortages. They did reopen again. Most people have maybe had the Founders Reserve. That's pretty much the one that you will see at a bar. I know Nine Maple had Glen Garioch Founders Reserve for a while. I don't know if they still have it, but that's the one you most likely see. But then they did come out with some other vintage releases. But it is now owned and operated by Morris and Bowmore Distillers, which is owned by the Japanese company Beam Suntory. So they are part of that Lefroy group, that's owned by Beam Suntory. So they actually keep the distillery in good hands with just being owned by them. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and play this video because before we jump into this first whiskey, just because it's good to have a little bit of background before we taste. So let me do this here. And I'm going to turn my screen so everybody here can see it without knocking over all my whiskey.
Oh, wow.
That work?
Yeah. I can see it, but I'm the first one here.
Across the British Isles, and that starts as early as today. The low pressure.
We've probably had between 200 and 300 ways of describing of this area.
Glen Garioch is how you pronounce it.
And as we say in the northeast, Cheery Geary. We are known as the most easterly distillery in Scotland, and we are just on the edge of the Highland region.
And this area of Scotland is quite literally the grain stores. The fields around Old Meldrum, around the distillery, they're all growing barley. One of the families that have been here for generations is actually the distillery manager, whose nickname is Digger. He got his nickname from his father, whose nickname was Digger, because he actually found the new water supply.
And the natural spring has just run into it ever since, and long may it continue.
Chill filtering really was started for the American market. If you put ice into non-chill filtered whiskey, it will look cloudy, but it's long been recognised that filtering that haze out, you're removing lots of flavours. Now we just filter it and
That's the
bottle it
founder's
so that when you
version.
drink it, it actually clings to your taste buds and the flavour goes on and on and on. Our stock from prior to 1995 was quite small. It lends itself well to producing single batch, small batch bottlings. I always tell visitors to Glen Garioch that the people making it and the people in the area and the whole atmosphere of the area are almost an ingredient. They're so much part of the whiskey.
All right, let me get set back up here. So pretty cool spot. Definitely a place I would like to visit. Haven't been there. I know Holly's been there, and she'll be online soon. She's just running home to join everyone. But yeah, so there you go, Glen Garioch. I don't have a lot more information beyond that. I haven't been. I don't have any pictures I can share. But we're going to taste 5 different whiskeys from them tonight, and we'll get a really good sense of if their barley is truly one of the best in Scotland. All right, so we're going to start off with dram number 1. We are doing a bottle that actually we have in the shop. We only have 1 bottle left, but this is a Glen Garioch 13-year-old from a company called Small Batch Bottlers. It's a little confusing. They're called small batch bottlers, but this is a single cask whiskey. This is not a small batch. It's actually kind of interesting. It's a brand, an independent bottling line that was created by the Distillers Art team. So we've seen Distillers Art for a while. We love a lot of their bottlings, but created by Distillers Art team of George Thompson and Ewan Cameron. You may have seen them on Instagram. Their core business was always combining great malt whiskey with fine art. And that's where Distillers Art name came from. They would pair fantastic landscape art of Scotland with different bottlings of whiskey, hence the Distillers Art. Not to be confused with another independent bottler called Distillers Art by Hunter Lang. But Small Batch Bottlers range doesn't flaunt the artwork on the bottle like the other releases do, but the focus is more on single cask strength releases. This one, so all of the whiskeys we're having tonight, if you just look at the color of the whiskeys, either in your glass or in the bottles, it's all yellow, gold. All of these are matured in either bourbon, first fill or ex-bourbon hogsheads. So this is really the true way to really dive deep, which is what this tasting is called, into a distillery by tasting their bourbon expressions. Because sherry, as much as we love sherry and different types of sherry, it does hide a lot of the nuances of the whiskey. And it's still great, but it's just more difficult to kind of get the true flavor of the whiskey. So we're starting off with a hogshead. There were 324 bottles in this cask. This one comes at 54.4%. It's 13 years old. And yeah, so let's give it a try. I haven't tasted this one yet. So sláinte, everybody. So John asked the question, when did they start using bourbon casks in Scotland? As far as I know, they've been using bourbon casks since the early 20th century, when a lot of whiskey was going over to the US and bourbon barrels were being sent back as well. So I don't know how much was actually used in the 19th century, but definitely in the 20th century, and then as we know, bourbon now makes up over 70% of all of the casks used outside of the US. So
What did you say the ABV was?
54.4. And then Holly has some tasting notes on this. Apples, pears, and white pepper spice. The palate continues with that warm spice, sugar cookies, and bright citrus, almost lime.
I'm getting some oranges.
Yeah, I'm getting citrus as well.
Citrusy, maybe some raisin. Some dried fruit.
Definitely the orchard fruit.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys can chime in online too. You don't have to just type.
I almost get a saltiness out of it, but not a brine.
Okay.
So during these tastings, the first dram is often maybe a weaker dram. And I have high hopes for this tasting. If it only gets better from here, this is pretty good.
Yeah, I think this is a really nice bottle.
Was that a compliment from Rob?
That was a compliment from Rob.
This tastes like Chloe.
The way it started out.
Yeah, it's not Kalila.
No, Pete.
We did start with a dram here in in the shop. I just pulled it off the shelf, not the store shelf, but my club shelf. And actually, Dave, I think you sold me this bottle. Somehow I ended up with 2 Westland 7-year single cask nation bottles. I think you sold me one at one point a while back. You had gotten Dave Tobias. No, you don't remember that?
A different distillery.
Really? Oh, really? Oh, maybe it was M&H?
No, but it was one of those like Westland.
Yeah, Westland.
Westland.
Yeah, that's what we had. So we had a Westland, but it was peated. I didn't realize it was peated. So we actually started with a peated dram tonight. So that was
So your palates are all skewed.
and it was 62.75%.
That's breaking a lot of rules, Charles.
Yeah, I know. I didn't look at the bottle. I just grabbed it.
Yeah, the first sip was something interesting.
It's a lovely dram.
Yeah, this is the only bottling we've ever gotten from this group, from small batch bottlers. I'm getting actually a little bit of cocoa note now too.
Yeah.
As my palate adjusts to it.
As it recovers from the peat.
From the peated dram, yeah. Yeah, 54.4. And this one, I can't see it behind Nate. So the bottle, the price is It's on the
138.99.
138.99. Yeah, which is right in that $10 a year range.
So this is like Cocoa Puffs, but without the sweetness.
How often do you have Cocoa Puffs, John?
Not often anymore.
I just thought I'd ask. This is a 700 ml, so a little smaller.
What is the price on it?
$138.99. Yeah.
$10 per year. This must
Yep.
be from.
All right. That was a good one to start with, for sure. Gives you a good sense of Glen Garioch to begin with. Okay.
Sound go out?
What's that?
It might just be a problem on my end. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
I don't hear anything right now. I'll fix it.
Okay. All right. So these next four whiskeys all come from the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society. They occasionally will do this. They actually call it their deep dive, which means they'll focus on one distillery and release bottlings that were all distilled on the same day, put into the barrel on the same day, and then sat next to each other for however many years. In this case, 18 years, which is pretty special. Sometimes when they do these deep dives, they will play around with casks, and they'll age one in one type of cask and another in another kind of cask. They didn't do that with this deep dive, which I really find very exciting. These were all distilled on February 17th of 2003. These next three, and I believe that the fourth one, which is a festival bottling, was also probably that same date. It doesn't say it on the bottle or on the notes that I have. Let me see here. Yeah, it doesn't give a date, but it does say February of 2003. So I am gonna guess that it's February 17th of 2003. So these next four bottles, if I'm right, all of them were distilled on the same day back in 2003. These next three, actually all of them, because even the fourth one, are all in first fill ex-bourbon. So we literally have 4 casks of the same type distilled on the same day for 18 years. So we're going to get to play around and see how different these all can be. And again, that's the beauty of single barrels, single casks. We know it from bourbon, we know it from Scotch. You have all these things sitting right next to each other, and they can taste completely different. But let's get to the first one. I didn't do these in order of anything besides number. As we know, the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society assigns a number to each distillery. Well, Glen Garioch is number 19. And then after the number, they have the cask numbers. So we have 19.63, 19.64, and 19.65. That's the order I went with. Has nothing to do with tasting notes or anything like that. It's all to do with just the order of the casks. And then the fourth one, which is called the Distillery 19 Rare Release, that was actually a festival bottling for the Highland Whiskey Festival last year. So they just released their festival bottlings yesterday for this year. I'm still unsure if I'm jumping on them or not. I'm trying to be careful with spending these days. But so these next four are all from Glen Garioch, distilled on the same day. So let's get into this first one, 1963. 19.63. It's called Leftovers in the Pantry. So that could mean a lot of things, depending on what your pantry is. All right, so let me read. So these are all first fill barrels, ex-bourbon. This one is 58.6% ABV. In the United States, there were only 66 bottles of this.
65 now.
Yes, there were 66. And there's probably none now. I don't know if there's any of these still available on the on their website or not. But let me read the notes because they always have a lot of fun notes. And this will take a while. All right, so this is called Leftovers in the Pantry. Let me get Dale in here again. All right, Leftovers in the Pantry. The nose was immediately appealing, a delightful amalgamation of roses, carnations, and butterscotch with fruit biscuits, apricot jam, and toasted nuts. After an initial explosion of chili heat on the palate, waves of fruit salad, apple crumble, and toffee popcorn arrived, drizzled with sticky syrup, while the finish was much drier with herbs and pine sap. With a dash of water, and not a bad idea, actually I need to put the droppers on the table. With a dash of water came aromas of green grass with toasted cereals and dry straw. Mango and melon delivered juicy fruits, while custard was served over now singed apple crumble and malted biscuits. A theme of juicy fruits and syrup continued on the palate, but now with the addition of stone fruits, cocoa nibs, and nut husks on the dry finish. So there you go.
That's exactly how I would have described it if I had a way with words.
Holly, we're on 63. What's that? Yeah. So one of the things I would recommend on this tasting is don't finish any of these, you know, have them all side by side. Again, 4 different casks, same date distillation. This is a true you know, test of what aging maturation can do to a whiskey. This is really nice though. This is a beautiful. I get that apricot. And the apple. Very viscous, super viscous compared to the first one.
What's the ABV on this?
This is 58.6. Actually, you know what? I didn't look up the price of these. I probably should have done that. Let me take a quick peek.
210.
210?
Yep.
Okay. So there you go.
I think they're all the same.
They're all 210. Yeah. When I bought them as a bundle, there was a little bit of a break.
How often do they do this deep dive?
They've been doing it now a couple times a year at least. We did the Macallan deep dive, which was really wonderful. And then we did a Glen Turret deep dive as well. So it's fun when they do that. With the Macallan, they were using different types of sherry, which was great. It was still all sherry, but it was different types of sherry. I can't remember what Glen Turret was, but that might have been finishings instead of.
So again, the difference with these 4 is where they're located, and that's it.
Well, it's also, I mean, you know, as we know with bourbon, you know, every barrel, where the staves, you know, have been, what they've been, you know, what tree they came from, you know, all of those things make it different. But yes, it truly is location and the barrel itself. I mean, you know,
It's as about as minimal a difference as you can
yes,
have.
yes. All right, so I'm not gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk through each of these four, and then we can kind of like take our time, taste them, compare them. So let me kind of run through the next three, just with the notes and all of that. And then what we can do at that point is take our time and drink these and compare and contrast. The next one, 19.64, is called Sweet Moment.
Oh.
This one is 57.9%. So 0.7% less than the first one. 84 bottles in the United States, so a little bit more yield. This one, a wonderful floral aroma. I'm going to let this breathe while I read this. A wonderful floral aroma with those citrusy overtones one finds in an orange blossom essential oil combined with the dry, woody, as well as sweet hay and barnyard nuances made this a fascinating nosing dram. They like the nose on this one. The taste was equally impressive. Thick cut marmalade, lemon vanilla custard slices, chocolate almond butter bars, and gulab jamun, whatever that is.
The Indian dessert.
Indian
Great
dessert.
honey.
There you go.
A lot of honey in that.
After the addition of water remained very elegant buttered croissants, apple turnover, marzipan, lime zest, and maple syrup on fluffy American pancakes. Syrupy and spongy on the palate like Anton Berg delicate biscuits with an apricot jam center and marzipan soaked in brandy, and finally covered in thick coating of dark chocolate. There you go.
Hint of copper wire.
I get strong with.
So I just took one little sip of that one. Very tasty. But I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about these next two, and then we can kind of go and take our time and drink through these. But cask number 19.65 is called 50s Nostalgia. A typical, okay, this one's 57.5. So it dropped another 0.4 from the second one. This one was 84 bottles in the United States. All right. A typically rich and satisfyingly deep aroma to begin. Lots of malt syrup, mothballs, cough mixtures, and herbal resins all betray this as an older style Highland malt. We also note toasted nuts, bergamot, citronella wax, and tea tree oil. With water, we found milk bottle sweets, cold cubes, vanilla sponge cake, and dusty, waxy tones. The neat palate opened in classically waxy and syrupy form. Lots of tinned fruit juices, myrtle, wintergreen, herbal teas, ointments, and spiced custard. With water emerged lemon oils, firwood, hardwood resins, furniture oil, camphor, and honeyed brioche toast.
With the tea tree oil, this could probably be used for a shampoo.
Somebody should mix all of those items.
Taste of cat litter bags.
And taste.
Yeah, I mean, you could do a infinity dram with these 3-4 barrels if you wanted to put them all together, but that might defeat the purpose of this. All right, the last one. I'm just going to read these again. We can talk about all these. We can go back and, but just this would be a good way to do it since we have all 4 of them open and tasting notes and all that. So this last one is actually a festival release bottling. It's called Out of This World. So when they do pick festival release bottlings, it's for a reason. They really like the cask. It just happens to be that this cask falls in line with this Glen Garioch Deep Dive tasting. So this one is 55.6, so it is a little bit less than the other 3. There were 240 bottles in the US. Again, this was a festival release just for the US, I believe, Oh, no, 240, yeah, that would be the whole barrel. Yeah, so this is just the USA allocation. So here we go. In the complex nose immediately evoked a generous helping of hazelnut spread. There were bars of nougat, flaked almonds, and sweet peanuts. "This is nuts!" exclaimed one humorous panelist. So nuts. In time, it became more oily, overripe peaches and nectarines, as well as a leafy note with eucalyptus and tea tree oil. To taste, we found salted caramel and white chocolate mice. Mice? Still oily, peppery nasturtium leaves, Sichuan pepper, citrus peels, and assorted gin botanicals. With water, that's a fat distillate, we all agree. Sweet and creamy, a Hessian sack full of barley, rum fudge, boiled toffee, Hessian. A Hessian sack full of barley. All right, guys. Shh. Jesus. Boiled toffee sweets and apple and peach tartine, or tart tatin. There you go. The amateur baker among us picked up notes of wholemeal bread drizzled with honey and buttery brioche. All right, let me just get, all right, from the creator, Ewan Campbell. The whole notion of whiskey regions is open to interpretation, but if you were to imagine a classic unpeated Highland style, then this is it. It's in our spicy and dry flavor profile with a rich mouthfeel and full of wonderful fruity esters. All right, there we go. How many pre-drams? Not many. Not enough, Beth-Ann. Not enough. Or Luke, whoever it is.
They're certainly related.
John, are you talking about me and Beth Ann or the whiskeys?
The whiskeys.
All right, so here's a challenge. I think you guys should try and do this if you can. I think we all should try and score these 4. And just to, okay, and again, scoring is very subjective, but you know, try and score these 4. You don't have to do it online, just do it on paper in front of you, whatever. But just try and figure out which ones you like, what order you like them. So then we can kind of come back to it all, you know, and see which of these casks the majority of people enjoy without talking amongst each other. Let's try and score these individually and then come forward with our answers. We can still talk about tasting notes and all that, but
so all of these are somewhere between mid to high 50% ABV. And yes. I feel like I am very out of practice with drinking in 2023 because they taste all incredibly proofy. They're very tasty, but they are quite proofy. Is that, am I out of practice or are they really just really hot?
I'm out of practice too, and I agree with you.
I think they're hot.
I'm not out of practice, and I disagree with you.
That's why.
I agree with you, Charles.
Yeah. Rob, I'm with Charles. They're not especially hot.
It's just I have my taste buds back, and I'm burning them off as we go.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny, but I agree with you. I mean, I've not been drinking nearly as much whiskey, especially high proof, as I used to. And it's once you get away from it, it's you have to get used to it again. And I'm not quite used to the proofing. I'm actually adding drops of water to these, and
well, that's a good thing.
Enjoying it. No, it's fine. I'm doing it because I'm actually enjoying it more. But a year ago, 2 years ago, that would not have been the case.
I think you're required to turn in your T-shirt now.
I will.
There's a whole new set of them.
I will burn off my tongue before I add water to whiskey.
Oh wow, that's quite the statement there.
Actually, I think burnt tongue was one of the.
Now, water, a drop of water, fine. A cube of ice, no way.
Slippery slope there, Doc. Slippery slope.
Yeah, the ice
So-
is slippery. That's
So
exactly
who is
right.
getting the nuttiness on that one? The which was the one, the last one that is the
65.
65. Yeah, 65.
But I'm not.
I got it from the description.
Yes. Add a lot of sweetness on the palate on that one.
I'm saying that.
But it's a funny change from the nuts on the nose to the sweet on the palate. It's like it's a chocolate bar of some kind. I don't know.
You're talking about the last one, right?
65.
Oh, 65. So it was the last one though, that was the nut.
No, the last one I'm getting. the
Oh, I
sweet-
meant, I'm sorry. I have my numbers wrong. No, you're right.
So that's what you're talking about though?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is amazing how that goes from that nutty kind of muted, but to a bursting fruit flavor. I think that's the beautiful dram, this last one.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Yeah, but this is the best way to get it.
That's true. This one is.
I like the nose best of the group.
Which one's your favorite? Source for this one, but I haven't touched this guy yet.
Let's just talk nose. What do you guys think on which is your favorite nose?
5.
2 and 4?
Yeah, the sweet moment.
Yeah, for me, it's 2 and 4.
2 and 4?
My
She
favorite.
was running away with me.
I'm sorry, 2 and 5.
Yeah.
For the nose.
We're talking about overall tasting 2 and 5, right? Just not these 4 that were.
No, we're talking
Yeah.
about just these 4.
Oh, yeah, then it would be 2 and 4 for me. on
2
the
and
nose.
4.
Is it 9 o'clock already? When is the gin tasting start?
Next.
Mine's 5 and 2 in that order.
Yeah. 63 is my favorite nose.
Yeah.
The first one.
1960 is my favorite nose. Yeah.
Yeah, I like 63. That's the best nose.
Yeah, I'm digging the 63 as well. It definitely has the cocoa note on it.
I did like the cocoa, but having it first, I'm not sure how that might have tilted my opinion.
Yeah, butterscotch, definitely getting the butterscotch.
What's the other one apart from this?
A little cinnamon on 63 as well on the palate.
Well, they're talking about chili heat on the palate, apple crumble, toffee popcorn, syrup, herbs, and pine sap.
I mean, it's hard to get past the family resemblance of all 4 of these.
That's right.
I'm definitely getting the chili heat on 63. There's like right when you take the first sip of 63, you get this hot chili kind of heat.
I get it on 64 as well.
You get it on 64 too?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really distinguishing a huge difference in that
So
regard.
64 and 65 had a real numbing effect on me.
Yeah.
I thought 64 had a really interesting chocolate back taste to it.
Yeah, I was gonna say the big difference for me between 63 and 64 is the finish. The finish on 64 is more. Yeah, it's long and it's chocolate, whereas the first one is the heat sticks with you.
Yeah.
I can definitely say that 65 is my least favorite of the 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So 65 is his least favorite. So maybe let's talk about least favorite.
Just 65.
Who's least? What are the least favorites of the 4?
Number 1.
Why, John?
Number 1.
It just has a bite to it for my palate.
So 1965. Oh, 3 on your mat. Okay.
I mean, they all have a bit of a Szechuan peppercorn type, but without the electricity. They do have that tongue-numbing intensity.
So
I think that's where.
Yeah, why don't you guys, when you do have your scores, just put them in the chat room. That's a good idea. If you want, you don't have to. Rob just submitted his scores. He likes 1965 the best.
In my.
Rob submitted them to where?
He directly to me. And then he has the festival bottling second. And then 1964 third and 1963 fifth. So his least favorite was 1963.
I want to taste the 1959.
I'm totally in more American.
John Harrelson, I'm very curious as to, I don't really distinguish a strong difference between the four of these in terms of the intensity, et cetera. There are nuances for sure, and maybe one slight preference, but to have such a profound discrepancy of one as your least favorite, without a doubt, I find interesting.
I'm going by this sheet.
Oh, by the sheet. So three.
I mean, my scores for all of these would be pretty close.
By the placemat.
I like them.
By this sheet.
Okay.
So 3 and 4 were my least.
So it's 1964 and 1965.
Right.
Okay.
Dale had the identical ranking that I did.
But he's wrong.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Everybody's honest. I did it without seeing your scores.
You can all be right.
Yeah. But it's to me, it's not a question of the ranking, John. It's the fervor in which you expressed it.
No, I just they're all close. I like what your comment was that you can get the familial similarities on all of them. There's not a bad dram here, but if you were to offer me a bottle of all four of them, or of 3 of the 4, there's no question that for me, that the 4 is the one I would exclude.
Yes. That's 1965.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, one question I have for you, Charles, again, going back to the prices from SMWS on these. I would imagine, I mean, you mentioned them, but I don't recall what they were specifically. But were the prices of all 4 the same, or is the festival bottle more expensive?
The first 3 were 210 each.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like them. Yep.
Let me see if I can pull up.
It was, so the nose and the finish were 0.
21. First one felt raw. I wouldn't kick it up. That's good. It's nice. Actually, no, one I graded.
Oh, you're right. 65 is less spicy.
It's pretty special to be tasting single cask 18-year-old Scotch. I mean,
no, yeah, without a doubt, these are all wonderful.
This is here, hold on. Trying to find it here.
Okay, on to the bourbon.
Actually, I guess.
All I know is I better start training.
Like against each other too.
Yeah.
I would just do tally system.
I just remember I was sad I was like, oh, that bottle for Christmas. Because once I had to get home, it's not 4 points.
Yeah, no, that was the most fun I ever had exchanging.
I don't know why it's not coming up on my.
Worst was when they had us try that one night. Like, oh,
yeah. Oh, it was up the McClellan.
So Nate, your the grassy note in 4, I take it you're referring to the festival bottle, or are you referring to the number 4?
The festival bottle was $185, so it was actually cheaper than the other ones.
I mean,
John, I missed you on that one. I dropped out. What were you saying?
Okay, so you noticed a grassy note to 4.
Yeah.
I mean, so 4 being the festival bottle.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Number 4. So one to the left.
Ram 4.
Okay, so right. That's what I just wanted to make sure that it was clear on which one you're talking about, because I think most of the people who are ranking them Oh, no, okay, never mind.
There's
It is the
definitely a
number, the
mix.
number of the dram.
Dram
It's
number.
confusing because you have 4 of these and out of the 5 we've tasted so far.
Right, I kept tripping over that very same thing.
I took the lead of the person that I saw who went before me. I thought.
Gotcha. No, you got it. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Hey, Holly, what are your thoughts on these? Like, just curious what your perspective is on these.
To be honest, I'm a little bit behind still.
Ah.
That's why, I'm not behind, but I'm still kind of working through, but I love the nose on 64.
Yeah, that's a beautiful nose.
I like when you can smell viscosity. There's something about that. Being able to smell the waxiness.
There's
That
smell dram 5.
5.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it's the nutty one.
Yeah, I know. 64.
Number, not 65, number 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this was also one that I was really digging, the festival bottling
Yeah,
as
the
well.
festival bottling.
Yeah. And I wanted to add, Charles, this is 18 years old is interesting because it was, when I was there, they were in transition again, and they were purchased in 1994 by Morrison Bowmore, and they were closed until 2009. So they were shut down. So it's the little window between the 18-year-olds are that little window between shutdown and reopening by the owners. And before 1994, it most likely would have been peated.
Okay. So, but you said it was closed in 2003.
Yeah, that's what I have here. Says 1994 it was purchased and then reopened in 2009. So maybe they were producing but making changes. I don't know.
That's interesting. Well, you did say it's a very haunted distillery. So maybe it was made by ghosts?
No, that's Boone County.
Oh, sorry.
Well, the Angels certainly have gotten their share. Actually, I'm starting to think dram number 3, 1964, may be my favorite of the 4 of them.
Which one?
Dram number 3, 1964.
Yeah.
Great wine year, by the way.
Aaron agrees with you, Doc.
It's a good nose call.
And the least favorite? 1965. The
That seems to be the consensus of the people who've declared themselves.
I mean, I like 1965. I don't have a.
Oh, no. I was just throwing that out there to stir up the pot.
Yeah.
That one from one of my
I wanted to see who was going to say, no. Vinny jumped up real quick. He's like, that was my favorite. So
We did a couple of Elvis's.
Not that I know anything.
Tony, what about you?
I like pretty 64 and 65.
Okay.
65 is more austere. Meaning 64 has a real sweetness to it that 65 doesn't have. 65 is that it's got a lot of flint and steel to it. Not I'm not getting a lot of fruit in there.
So by doing this exercise, it's hard, right? I mean, this is really hard. These are all older whiskeys, They've all taken on a lot of interesting influence, whatever, from the barrel. But this is really hard. This is probably our hardest, one of our hardest like comparisons to date.
Well, but the other thing that's clear, Charles, is they make pretty darn good whiskey.
Oh, sure.
So
Especially
go back,
aged 18 years.
go back to dram number 1 after all of this, and it's really interesting to taste the difference. It's still, that's a pretty fine drink compared to the 18s. It holds its own.
I mean, dram number 1, just from a nose, is very muted for me compared to a lot of these that are, but I don't know. I don't have a lot in my glass, so.
But it has a very nice palate. I agree. It's the weakest of the nose, but it's got a really nice palate. It stands up to the 18s, I think.
You're talking about, yeah, number 1. I thought the nose was really nice, especially my initial impressions.
But it's
with
muted.
the green apple.
It's a very subtle compared to the others, I think.
It's almost new make.
It's almost what?
New make.
I think your comment earlier, John, about number 1 Cocoa Puffs. I mean, that is spot on. Or, you know, it's almost like you take a spoonful of the powdered cocoa and roll it around your mouth, and that's the aftertaste.
Yeah, but without the sugar.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Cocoa Krispies. We've been corrected. She's right.
I'll tell you what, we're probably one of the only groups in North America that are doing a Glen Garioch single cask tasting. I don't know how many people have done anything like this in terms of whiskey clubs or anything like that.
Charles, I don't know why you would limit that comment to North America. The only people.
Oh, because the Canadians. No, you have the Canadians. They're pretty.
That's North America. That's North America.
So if this were the academic world, we would publish something about it.
Let's be honest, we should edit it tomorrow.
There are no ambassadors for Glen Garioch. There's no one talking about this. We were talking about it. You'll see Lefroy and Oakentoshan. They'll do Suntory tastings, but Glen Garioch is not on the table. So this is a pretty cool.
Well, they have one bottle in the U.S. basically. It's the Founder's Reserve.
Yeah, but no one's talking about it. So
I think that's a calling for a whiskey shop in Saratoga.
Which one? This one? And everybody, if you haven't heard, podcast came out today on Single Cask Nation with Holly on it. So if you haven't listened to it, you got to listen to it. I know she's excited. She's super proud about it. Look at her face.
Is she not?
No,
We can't see it, but we'll take your word.
no, you know, we're all, when we hear ourselves talk, it's really hard.
it was a challenging topic that I didn't want to discuss.
Which was?
Oh!
Which is?
Shipping.
Shipping.
Oh.
So it was a lot of dancing around what all of us wanted to say and then not saying it.
Tell the truth. This sucks.
No.
It used to be 10, they've gone up to like 15.
All right, so I still have a bunch left in my glass, but I'm gonna let these kind of just sit and play and whatever. But
Move
do
on to what?
you guys want to talk more about these Scotch Malt Whiskey Society bottles?
They're all the same at this point.
They're all the same at this point.
They more or less are.
They really are.
All right, so here's the next challenge. You take what's in your glasses and you mix 2 of them, and the best person to come up with the blend of 2 of these. No, I'm just kidding. That'd be tough.
What do you mean the best person?
No, not the best person. The best blender. That'd be really hard. All right, do you guys want me to, do you want to wait till we finish off with Tormore, or are you guys ready for Tormore or whatever?
Let's do Tormore. Is Tormore different?
It better be different.
Yeah.
I think I need something different.
All right, so let me talk about this distillery then, because we ended with this because it was just fun to have something different to wrap up. But Impex, which is the bottler, is started by Sam Filmus, who is he's the president and managing director of Impex Beverages, and Chris Ude, who is his longtime business partner, but they both worked and imported amazing brands over the years. Kilhoman, Single Cask Nation, Adelphi, Glenallachie, Port Askeg, Ardnamurchan, Fucano, and more. So lots of cool brands. It's hard to get Impex releases, we found as a shop. We've gotten a few, but not many. We got a Japanese, we got a Scotch, and we got a Welsh. I think that's it. We've gotten very little Impex. Tormore Distillery. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Could be Tormore. Like
it's Tumor.
Tumor.
It could be Gary.
It's Amani Tumor. Amani Tormore Distillery.
Spoken like a doctor, Scons.
Yeah. All right, so they're also located in the Speyside. They're 1 kilometer south of the River Spey, so right in the heart. The distillery construction began in 1958, completed in 1960. So it's the first new distillery to be built in the country in the 20th century. So think about that. All the other distilleries before were built in the 19th century. So quite a date span there before Tormore was built.
And the first in the 20th century wasn't until the 60s. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
Well,
yeah.
That just shows you how difficult of a time it was for Scotch whiskey and, expansion with the wars and everything else that went along with that. All right.
What's the heyday of the blend?
Of the what?
Oh, the blends.
Yeah, sure. Also. So let's see here. 1972, the distillery was expanded from 4 to 8 stills, which we saw a lot of in the 70s. Converted to be heated by wood chips in 1984. Interesting. Let's see, they've been controlled by Pernod Ricard since they purchased from Allied Domecq in 2005, and then it was sold to Elixir in 2022. So just recently, last year, Elixir Distillers bought Tormore, and that's where you get Impex, because Impex is part of the Elixir line. There is a cool time capsule in the shape of a pot still that's buried in the forecourt, which is intended to be opened in 2060. It contains glasses and a trignum of Long John, the original owner's own blended whiskey. So that'll be cool. We're all going to go to Tormore in 2060.
Yeah.
That's
Not that far away.
So mostly sold in 14 and 16-year versions, but then we have a lot of independent bottlings. But not many people have had Tormore. Anybody here had Tormore before? Anybody? No? So there you go. That's part of being in the whiskey club. You get to try a new distillery. I don't know how many people had Glen Garioch before this tasting as well, but
Double first.
double first. There you go. With Glen Garioch and Tormore. Have anybody had Glen Garioch or Tormore here? Yeah.
I've had Glen.
You had Glen
This-
Garioch? Yeah. There you go.
I had Glen Garioch.
This could not be more different.
All
than
right,
the other
so
Other 5.
this is
Agreed.
this bottling is 11 years old. It's refill bourbon, so not first fill bourbon. So it should have less bourbon influence. 202 bottles. Let me see here. This one is up there.
64.7.
64.7.
Whoa.
Funny, it doesn't feel like that. Maybe I've just become inured to the
Yeah, I think we're numb.
yeah.
This is clearly MGP juice. Clearly.
Could be.
Rob says this is MGP juice.
Actually, I think it's rum.
This is very sweet. This is very sweet.
And it goes on.
It's rum.
Yeah.
This is a Foursquare bottle.
Barbados.
Exactly.
The brand, here are the brand tasting notes. Subtle vanilla sweetness, and then garden rainfall, honeycomb, and a hint of peat. I don't know if anybody's getting peat. The palate has more vanilla, floral, and heather notes with spice. Distilled September 1st, 2010, bottled March 15th, 2022.
Actually, it reminds me more of a Coroni rum than a Barbados rum.
But I like it.
No, I like it too.
I actually like it a lot.
Yeah, same. I get a floral tea out of it almost. Like a,
Yeah.
Floral tea.
Yeah, even if these proof.
And I agree with Rob, it drinks less hot than the Glen Garioch.
Hey, that was my sentiment.
And mine.
Charles, you don't have this in the shop, do you?
Yeah, we do. We have one bottle or two bottles left. I can't see.
And don't tell me, 110.
It's on the top left.
120.
120 something, right?
Boy,
129.
Overpriced.
Overpriced. Yeah.
What happened to the $10? Yeah.
Not for Impex.
It's not single cask nation.
It's 64% too. So when you get above 60%, forget the $10 a year rule. You're in new territory. You're in $12 a year rule.
You add water and stretch it to a liter.
Yeah, exactly. You're getting two bottles in one.
It's high efficiency.
What about it's got reasonable heat, great investment.
So if you can look behind Dale, you can see the little dot, the red dot. That's where Glen Garioch is, way on that.
Dale, speak. Speak, Dale, speak.
No, he's got the.
There it is.
I know. No, speak, Dale.
I've been having audio trouble tonight, so I'm trying to stay on mute.
No, wait a second. When did you come? Where? I gotta go back to gallery view. There you go.
Yeah, the red dot is where they are.
Is anybody getting any peat?
No.
No peat.
I'm not getting any peat.
So that's the easternmost distillery in Scotland.
Just north of Aberdeen.
What's the ABV on that one?
64.7.
Dale, that's Glen Garioch, not Tormore, right?
Correct.
Oh, yes, sorry, that's Glen Garioch.
Yes, that's Glen Garioch. Tormore would be to the left of that in the space side, which is
Yeah, I
not
think
too,
Reasonably tasty.
not much left.
Dale, I think Dale, I think the reason you've had the auditory problems is because you have that fancy background.
I know.
Only so much space on the internet.
And there should be like 5% tasting.
But we do appreciate the fancy background.
Just to kind of.
Charles, I have something very important that I think you and Holly need to get for the shop.
Uh-oh. Oh, yeah.
I was waiting for him to say it. He must be. He won't do it. 160.
I like it.
Won't do
Yeah.
it.
I like it.
This is the night my wife did that. Anything I buy,
We'll get that for Charles.
No.
Is that your design, John?
So I can just
Oh,
point at him and
popped
say
up
he
on
knows
Instagram.
things.
But I think I'm gonna get.
All right, this is not Scotch related, but this is my equivalent.
I got a text.
That's
I
good.
could use that.
Mary,
actually.
Mary, that would make an equally good hat.
That's true.
So between the Tormore and the Glen Garioch, where does Tormore rank?
You know what? It's so different. I'm having a really hard time figuring out how to fit it into this.
Yeah.
I have a note to myself. I'm gonna try it tomorrow.
Okay.
I don't like it at all compared to what I was tasting, but I think I might like it, but.
Yeah. It is quite different, for sure.
I like it because it is different, but on the same token, I agree. I think the Glen Gariochs overall are really quite nice, and I think the Glen Gariochs are easier to continue to drink than this. This has a certain density on the finish that I think becomes tiresome after a little bit.
Well, your liver is not adjusted yet.
Well, but it is adjusted at this point. I didn't add any water to this.
No, I
didn't need to any water to this, yet this is the most alcohol rich of all the
the Glen Gariochs are a lot more refined. This sort of hits you in the face, although it doesn't drink as hot. The flavors just hit you in the face, I think.
It's dense.
Yeah.
It's very dense. I mean, it's got that oily flavor to it. I mean, it really does strike me more as a rum than a whiskey.
Well, and it is curious that like you said, this is almost 10% ABV more, and it's not nearly as sharp and hot as
you know what's interesting though is this is refill bourbon. This is not first fill bourbon, and yet
you mean it's not a first fill spirit?
But the flavors, the sweetness, the rum notes, that's coming from refill. So that's pretty interesting, you know, because all of these Glen Gariochs, maybe because of that extra 7 years, it kind of made it a little bit or more complex or depth. But this is pulling out a lot of fruit for a refill at a very high alcohol. So
how does it differ geographically? I mean, we see where Glen Garioch is.
It's not that far. It's not that far to the left.
Okay.
Like ear?
Yeah.
We're talking about like the ear area.
It's going to be right about where a little bit right to of his ear.
Yeah, can you move aside for a second? The other way.
Right above the third stripe on his shirt.
And where's Edinburgh? Where's Edinburgh in comparison, in relation to that?
In his armpit.
Okay.
Thanks,
By the
Dale.
way, for those of you who have Netflix and enjoy Netflix, there's a relatively new movie that, as people interested in Scotland might be interested in, it has no whiskey reference at all, but is Seven Kings Must Die. Entertaining.
What's it called?
Seven Kings Must Die.
Oh.
Yeah, I watched that. That's part of the series.
The series? Is there more?
Seven Kings Must Die. A reference to the Bernard Cornwell series.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the same lead character.
Wait, but isn't Bernard Cornwell from the 18th century?
Well, he
Or
did.
19th
He's
century?
also done this thing called the Saxon Tales.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
And this is a and this kind of wraps it up. They did several seasons of it as a series.
Very
But
cool.
Seven
I
Kings
didn't
Must
think I
Die
saw.
is the way they wrap it up. It has absolutely no relationship to the books, but it's interesting.
As most of these are. Yeah.
I will say something that has me thinking. If you go back to number one, if you have any, the 13 year seems so simple compared to the 18. There's like, doesn't have anywhere near the complexity and stuff going on. And that would make me nervous about buying a Glen Garioch if it weren't really aged. I love these 18s, but when you go back, and I like the 13 when we first tasted it, and I'm a fan of Cocoa Puffs or Cocoa Crisps, but compared to these now, it's really simple.
It's sort of
Yeah.
one note.
It's a nice note, though.
Yeah.
Because I was curious about Tormore, but it's the Tormore has purifiers on the still, so it's creating more reflux. It's catching some of the vapor that would normally be caught at the top of the still and condensed back into the new make, what we would put into the cask, and being pushed back down. So its intention is to be a fruitier, lighter, more estery, not simple, but it has more copper contact because of this, because it's pushing the vapor back down into the pot still, where Glen Garioch doesn't have that. So I don't know if that is where we're getting some of that heavier complexity too from the Glen Garioch as well. The Tormore for me is sweet confection vanilla.
Rum.
Yes. I like it, but yeah, it's candy for me.
It would go
Nate, the
well with
alcohol
tonic,
punch,
unlike most scotches.
Nate, not so much. Some people would say that it's cleaning up the spirit even further, but some people would say you're stripping more out of it, because the more copper contact you have, essentially the closer you are getting to vodka, the more you distill it. So it's could be cleaning it up, but some people want to have less copper contact and want to leave a little bit more in it. So it's kind of a distillery choice.
Okay, that's just really interesting to me though, because I don't think it tastes nearly as strong of an alcohol punch as some of the other Glen Gariochs, and it's got such a higher content.
Yeah, and being younger too.
Right. I would expect it to have that, that vodka kind of punch is what you're talking about, but it just doesn't come through in the expression.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I don't know what Glen Garioch's oak policy is, or Tormore is new and modern, and they knew oak was really important even in the 60s. And I don't know if Glen Garioch,
So
these
let
could
me
be
just
some
quickly
pretty-
jump
is
in.
it-
I know it's really loud here, but
I'll let Charles
you
talk.
guys can see the map. This is the heart of the space side. So Craigellachie, Aberlour, all that's Duffton. So Balvenie, Glenfiddich, McAllen, all right here. Tormore is right here. So just right on the River Spey. And then Glen Garioch is over here. So you can kind of get a sense of how far away. So here's Aberdeen. So Glen Garioch is just north of Aberdeen. If you go down here, here's Fettercairn, which is southwest of Aberdeen. So those are the distilleries they're technically highlands. They're pretty close to the space side, but they're not space side. So they're still considered highlands, but there you go.
So what kind of crowd do you have in the shop tonight?
Well, I've got 11 really loud people right now. Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
So I'm actually going to wrap up the recording. I'm going to keep this going so you guys can stay on, but I'm going to wrap up the recording because it's so loud here.
You need Maxwell Smart's cone of silence.